Have you ever wondered, does death truly end all communication? In our modern world, filled with signals and phone lines, there have been chilling moments when the caller was already dead. From the US and the UK to Africa and Japan, final messages, warnings, or whispered goodbyes have echoed through phones, leading many to believe that the connection between the living and the dead still exists, perhaps in a different realm. Today, World Mysteries invites you to uncover 10 of the most eerie and unexplainable phone calls from beyond, documented across the globe. And if mysteries like this fascinate you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next time the unknown tries to make contact. 1. Charles Peck, 35 phone calls from the dead, 2008. On the afternoon of September 12, 2008, a devastating train accident struck California's San Fernando Valley. A Metrolink commuter train collided head-on with a freight train, killing 25 people and injuring hundreds. Among the victims was Charles E. Peck, a 49-year-old aerospace engineer on his way to a job interview that could have changed his life, one that would bring him closer to his fiancée, Andrea Katz. But what happened after the crash is what turned tragedy into mystery. In the 11 hours following the accident, Charles's cell phone made 35 calls, not random dials, but directly to his closest family members, his fiancée, his son, his siblings, and his stepfather. Each time the recipients heard only static and eerie silence, and when they tried to call back, the calls went straight to voicemail. Despite the horror of the crash, those phone calls sparked a fragile hope. Maybe Charles had survived, trapped in the wreckage and trying to reach out. Rescue teams used the signal to search for him, triangulating his location within the mangled train cars. But when they finally found Charles's body, 12 hours later, they determined he had died instantly at the moment of impact. Most chilling of all, his cell phone was never recovered from the wreck. Some skeptics have suggested that the phone could have short-circuited and auto-dialed numbers by accident. But how does a damaged phone call only the people closest to him? And why did it vanish without a trace? For his grieving family, those calls were more than a technological glitch. They believed that Charles, in whatever form remained, had tried one last time to reach out, not to be saved, but to say goodbye. In their eyes, this wasn't just a tragic accident. It was one of the most chilling real-life cases of what many now call a phone call from beyond the grave. If Charles Peck's story felt like a farewell from beyond the grave, this next one is something even more chilling, a warning from the dead that may have saved a life. Number 2. Dean Koontz, a warning from his late mother, 1988. In September 1988, best-selling American horror author Dean Koontz, a master of the strange and supernatural, experienced an event so surreal it could have come straight from one of his novels. On the night of September 20th, Koontz was working late in his office in California when the phone suddenly rang. He picked it up. On the other end, he heard a woman's voice, soft, distant, but unmistakably clear, say just one sentence: "Be careful." Then again, "Be careful." And once more, "Be careful." Then the line went dead. No static, no goodbye, just silence. Koontz froze. The voice, it sounded exactly like his mother, who had passed away nearly 20 years earlier. The number she called was a private office line, known to very few. And the voice, calm but urgent, didn't sound like a prank. It felt otherworldly. He sat motionless, unsure whether what had just happened was real or imagined. But 2 days later, the meaning behind the call became terrifyingly clear. While visiting his father at a care facility, Koontz suddenly found himself in a life-threatening situation. His father, suffering from a bout of dementia, lunged at him with a hidden knife. Dean managed to wrestle the blade away, holding it in his hand when police stormed in, responding to the disturbance. What they saw was a man, knife in hand, next to an elderly patient. They raised their guns and shouted, "Drop the weapon!" At that instant, Koontz recalled the mysterious warning, "Be careful." He slowly put down the knife and raised his hands. That calm decision, driven by a voice he couldn't explain, may have saved his life. Later, Koontz admitted he couldn't prove what had happened. But deep down, he believed that his mother had reached across the veil, stepping in one last time to protect her son. "I can't explain it. I only know that I heard her voice, and because of that, I'm alive." Dean Koontz, this wasn't fiction, this was real. 3. Text messages from beyond, a grandmother's final words, 2014. Not all messages from the dead come in moments of danger. Sometimes they arrive quietly, like a gentle whisper of love from someone you thought was gone forever. In October 2014, in South Shields, England, the family of Leslie Emerson, a 59-year-old woman who had passed away from cancer, decided to bury her with her favorite mobile phone. Leslie had always loved texting. She used it to stay in touch with her children and grandchildren. The phone, buried with her, became more than just a keepsake. It felt like a way to stay connected, even in death. Sherry Emerson, her 22-year-old granddaughter, continued to send text messages to the number after the funeral. It was her private way of coping, a one-sided conversation with the grandmother she missed dearly. She never expected a reply, until one day, a message popped up on her screen. The words sent a chill down her spine. "I'm watching over you. You will get through this. You will be okay." Terrified, Sherry immediately texted back, asking who was sending the message. Not long after, another message arrived. "I'm watching over you, and things will get better. Stay strong." Sherry felt a wave of nausea. Her hands shook. Had someone dug up her grandmother's grave and taken the phone? Or was this something worse? Was it her grandmother's spirit reaching out? The Emerson family launched a frantic investigation, and eventually, the truth was revealed. Not paranormal, but chilling in its own right. The number that had been buried with Leslie had been recycled by the mobile network and given to a new customer after a period of inactivity. That person, completely unaware of the phone's eerie history, had simply received a few kind messages from someone they didn't know and decided to reply with encouragement. Though the story turned out to be a case of administrative error, the emotional shock Sherry experienced was very real. For a moment, she had truly believed she was hearing from her grandmother again. And in a way, she had. Because even if no ghost sent those messages, the experience reminds us that technology has a strange power to revive connections we thought were lost and to blur the line between the living and the dead. Messages from beyond can be unsettling, but what if the call came from inside the coffin? 4. The call from the coffin, when the dead dial back. A female operator working for a funeral home hotline in the United States shared a chilling story, one she experienced firsthand. Late one quiet night, the office phone rang. On the line was a woman, sobbing. Through her tears, she asked, "Is my mother's phone still in her coffin? Because we just got a call from her number." Her mother had passed away a few days earlier. Her body was lying in a sealed coffin at the funeral home, waiting for the visitation the next morning. The operator froze. After regaining composure, she immediately contacted the funeral home director and relayed what the caller had said. The director listened carefully and then let out a quiet chuckle. What he said next sent chills down her spine. That kind of thing happens more often than you'd think. Apparently, for those who've worked in the funeral business long enough, it wasn't the first time a deceased person's phone had mysteriously called out. Later that evening, when the staff opened the coffin to investigate, they found the mobile phone still tucked safely in the deceased woman's coat pocket, exactly where it had been placed before burial. So who made the call? Was it a glitch? A malfunction? A stray signal from the network? Those are the go-to explanations. But what unsettled the staff most was the fact that the funeral director had seen it happen more than once. If it's just coincidence, why does it recur in places so intimately connected with death? And if it's not, could someone or something be reaching out from the other side of the veil? 5. Tell June I'm okay. A final message from Pop, 1994. If the previous stories left us chilled, this one carries a quiet tenderness, a final message wrapped in love and peace. On November 27, 1994, in a quiet rural town in the United States, a beloved grandfather known simply as Pop passed away in the early morning after a long battle with lung cancer. He died peacefully, surrounded by his family and the devoted home nurse who had cared for him during his final year. That same afternoon, after the funeral, the nurse returned to her home, emotionally exhausted. As she entered, she noticed something unusual. The answering machine in her living room was blinking. There was a new message. The timestamp? 1:30 p.m., just hours after Pop had died. She pressed play. The voice that came through the speaker made her freeze in place. "Tell June I'm okay." It was Pop's voice. Warm, distinct, unmistakable. June was the affectionate nickname he used for his beloved wife, Patricia, his lifelong partner who had stayed by his side until his final breath. Stunned, the nurse immediately contacted the family. When June heard the recording, she began to weep uncontrollably. The rest of the family stood in silence, shocked, heartbroken, and deeply moved. There was no rational explanation. This was 1994. Mobile phones weren't yet common in rural areas. Pop was gone, and the answering machine was a basic model. It couldn't generate or fabricate calls. No one could say how the message came through. But for the family, no explanation was needed. They believed Pop had found a way to leave one last message, to comfort the woman he loved most, letting her know he was at peace, and perhaps waiting for her in the next life. The story was later shared by one of the grandchildren, passed down through the family as a quiet reminder that when love is deep enough, it may transcend even the boundaries of death. Number 6. The Cancelled Order. A Call from the Other Side, 2010. Around the year 2010, in England, a man visited his late mother's house to tidy up and sort through her belongings. She had passed away just a few weeks earlier. As he entered the quiet home, he noticed something peculiar. A delivery notice slipped under the door. "We attempted to deliver your order, but no one was home." Confused, he remembered that his mother had ordered a few items from a mail-order catalog not long before her death. Thinking the package had arrived late, he called the distribution company to cancel the order and explain that his mother had passed away. But before he could say much, the customer service agent interrupted him. "Oh, the order has already been canceled. She called us about 2 days ago to cancel it herself." The son froze in place. That couldn't be true. His mother had been dead for well over a week, but the agent insisted, even adding, she was very polite. She apologized for the inconvenience and said she had to cancel because she was suddenly going away for a while. Those words sent a cold shiver down his spine, because yes, his mother had gone away, but not on a trip. She'd gone to the other side. Trying to stay calm, he asked if the call had been recorded or traced. The agent said no recording was available, as it was considered a standard call. Even more unsettling, the agent added, almost as an afterthought, "To be honest, this isn't the first time I've had a call like that." What really happened? Could the number have been spoofed? Was it a technical glitch? A stranger who somehow had access to her number and mimicked her voice? No one knew. But what the man and his family remembered most was the kindness in the caller's tone, the gentle apology, the desire to make sure nothing was left unfinished. Even after death, it seemed she still wanted to tidy things up, to cancel one last order, as if making sure she didn't leave a mess behind. A simple call, a quiet voice. But it left a haunting question. Can a spirit linger just to complete one final task? 7. The 3:37 a.m. call, a cry for help from the dead. While most posthumous phone calls carry farewells or comforting words, this one came as a desperate cry for help from someone who was no longer alive to speak it. A young man, let's call him Paul, shared a haunting experience that still unsettles him to this day. His older sister, just a year his senior and deeply close to him, had died suddenly. The official cause? Suicide. But Paul didn't believe it. There was no suicide note, no warning signs, and he knew her too well. They shared everything. They were more like twins than siblings. A few days after the funeral, around 3:37 a.m., Paul was asleep next to his girlfriend when his cell phone rang, jolting both of them awake. On the screen, private number. Thinking it might be a drunk friend needing a ride, Paul groggily answered. All he heard was static and distortion. He said hello a few times, but no reply. He was about to hang up when he suddenly heard it, a voice whispering his name, Paul. His heart stopped. It was her voice. Shocked, he stammered, "Sister." And then, through the crackling interference, came her voice again, barely audible but unmistakably hers. "I'm sorry. I love you. Please, help me." Then, with a high-pitched screech, the call abruptly ended. Silence. Paul sat in disbelief, shaken to his core. His girlfriend had heard the phone ring too, proving it wasn't a dream. It had really happened. Paul tried everything to trace the call, but the private number left no record, no trail. It was as if it never existed. And yet the voice lingered in his mind. The plea, "Please help me," replayed over and over, refusing to fade. Had his sister truly taken her own life? Or was she trying to tell him that something else happened? That she needed help, even now? This eerie case is often likened to what's known as a crisis call, a phenomenon in which the dying reach out, consciously or unconsciously, to a loved one at the very moment of death or shortly after. Was this her soul, reaching out to Paul in her final moment? No one can say for sure. But one thing remains certain. That phone call at 3:37 a.m. changed Paul's life forever. And to this day, the mystery of his sister's death remains unsolved, haunting him like the voice that called to him in the dark. After warnings, cries for help, and eerie disturbances, sometimes a call from beyond comes as nothing more than a final whisper of love, gentle, powerful, and profound enough to cross even death itself. 8. The Final Call, Love Beyond Death, 2019. In 2019, in a quiet American town, an elderly woman in her 80s, let's call her Marjorie, had just lost her husband, Harold, after 61 years of marriage. He passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by family. That day, the household was steeped in sorrow as relatives gathered to begin funeral arrangements. Marjorie sat in the living room with her granddaughter, distant and dazed. Suddenly, the landline rang. She slowly picked it up. On the other end was a soft, low voice, familiar, intimate, and instantly recognizable. "I'm okay. You're going to be okay too. I love you." Marjorie froze, then broke into tears, the first deep sobs she had allowed herself that day. It was Harold. And here's what chilled everyone. His body had just been taken away by the funeral home minutes earlier. No one outside the house knew yet. There was no time for pranksters or mistaken calls, and no one else could have replicated his exact voice in that fragile moment. Hearing her cries, the granddaughter rushed over. Marjorie, still trembling, told her what had happened. At first, the family was skeptical. Perhaps grief had played a trick on her. Perhaps she imagined it. But something in her eyes, not fear, but peace, softened their doubts. Maybe, they thought, Harold really had called to say goodbye. Marjorie had never believed in ghosts. She wasn't superstitious. But after that moment, something changed. She began to open herself to mysteries she once dismissed. And in the days that followed, strange but heartwarming events occurred. Their wedding photo suddenly fell during a family conversation, and an old radio turned on by itself, playing a love song from their youth before switching off again. The family believed it was Harold's way of saying, "I'm still here." To Marjorie, that phone call was not a coincidence or a hallucination. It was proof, undeniable and sacred, that real love doesn't end with death. It calls back. Number 9. A voicemail from the other side, her friend's last hello, 2011. Sometimes a final message doesn't come through words spoken face to face, but through a voice, echoing from somewhere beyond our world. In 2011, a woman named Maya received a phone call that would forever change the way she saw life, death, and what might lie between. Her best friend had been battling a terminal illness and had fallen into a deep coma in the hospital. Malia hadn't heard any news and assumed her friend was still holding on. Then one afternoon, while waiting in line at a grocery store, she ran into a former coworker who also knew her friend. He asked how she was doing. "I think she's still in a coma," Malia answered. But before she could say more, a woman nearby who had overheard their conversation gently interrupted. "Excuse me, are you talking about her name?" "Yes," Malia said. "I'm sorry, she passed away 2 days ago." Malia was stunned. No one had told her. The weight of the truth hit her like a punch to the chest. Days later, while still grieving, Malia's phone displayed a missed call and a new voicemail message. Oddly, there was no caller ID and no way to call the number back. Curious, and with a growing sense of unease, she pressed play. A voice, clear and familiar, came through. "Malia, it's me." That was it. Short, direct, unmistakably her friend's voice. Not weak or dying, but strong and lucid, just like the old days. Malia dropped the phone, heart pounding. She was certain. She knew that voice too well to be mistaken. Trying to make sense of what happened, she checked the call logs and voicemail records, but there was nothing there. The message had vanished, as though it had never existed. Only Malia and her closest loved ones knew the truth. She hadn't imagined it. That message was real. Was it a glitch? Could a random signal have replayed an old recording? Science offers such possibilities, but the timing, the clarity, the emotional precision, it was all too perfect. To Malia, that simple phrase, "It's me," was a sign, a final farewell, a whisper from the other side, a way to say, "I'm okay now, and I'll always be with you." When one person claims to receive a phone call from a deceased loved one, it can be brushed off as grief or imagination. But when three people receive the same call at the same time from the same dead man, that changes everything. 10. Three siblings, one call. A father reaches back, 2016. In 2016, a father in the United Kingdom passed away, leaving behind his mobile phone as a memento. After the funeral, his youngest son took the phone home. Out of respect and grief, he removed the SIM card and stored the device away, powered off and untouched. The father's number, saved as Dad in each of his three children's phones, was now disconnected, dormant, and unused. But a few weeks later, while walking to work, the youngest son's phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the screen and froze. "Incoming call, Dad." Shaking, he answered. No voice, no words, just the sound of labored, raspy breathing, eerie and distant. Then, silence. The call ended. Panicked, he called his two older sisters to ask if they had somehow used their father's number as a prank. But what they told him made his blood run cold. They had both received the exact same call, at the exact same time. Same number, same contact name, same breathy silence. Three phones, three siblings, one dead father, and the device in question, still powered off, without a SIM, locked in a drawer at home during all three calls. Explanations were few, and none of them satisfying. Some speculated it could be a cruel joke, but for that to happen, someone would need to know the contact name each child used, have access to spoof the number, and time the calls perfectly. Highly unlikely. Others suggested a bizarre telecom glitch, but for the same number to reappear on three different phones simultaneously, with identical ghostly breathing and no traceable data afterward, statistically improbable, if not impossible. In the end, the siblings agreed on what felt most real to them. Dad was reaching out, just to remind us he's still watching over us. No words were needed. The sound of his breath was enough. That chilling, quiet call wasn't just a strange event. It was a final, powerful gesture, reassuring and terrifying at once. And in closing this list of stories from beyond, it became something more. A reminder that calls from the dead aren't always isolated incidents. They're shared, repeated, and growing. And somewhere across the static, someone may still be trying to reach through. These stories, from heartfelt goodbyes to chilling cries for help, open a door to something terrifying yet fascinating. Could death truly not be the end of communication? Though science has yet to explain it, these so-called calls from the dead keep happening, raising profound questions about whether human consciousness lingers after death. Whether you choose to believe or not is entirely personal. But imagine one night, your phone rings, and the name flashing on the screen is someone who's long gone. Would you dare pick up? If these stories sparked your curiosity, don't forget to like, share, leave a comment, and subscribe to World Mysteries so you won't miss the next chilling revelation from the unknown.